You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as today your Indiana Hoosiers defeated the Providence Friars by the score of 89-73 in the 7th place game at the Battle for Atlantis. Indiana wins and improves their record to 5-2. We'll come back home, have another non-conference game, and then Big Ten play starts up here in the 1st of December. I'm your host, Coach Brian Tonsoni. I'm here with Coach Bob Moats. We're going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. Your Indiana Hoosiers got a much-needed win today after a couple very disappointing games. We'll talk about the Gonzaga game towards the back end and some overall takeaways from the entire battle for Atlantis as we proceed through the show. We're going to focus first on this game where Indiana jumped out to a lead, maintained a lead for most of the game, led by 10 at halftime. Got out to a really nice run to start the second half, and a little bit of a lull, got down to 8 or 9 points at some point, but Indiana found multiple ways on the offensive end to score some points tonight, which I think is going to be the emphasis for me. But let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. For me, pin down threes. Pin down threes. Yes, Hoosier fans, you heard it from Coach Tonsoni. We saw pin down threes being called from the sidelines, and we saw Goody hit one, and Baco hit 3 or 4. It had a nice curl off of one. Those are the actions that can complement a strong post game that we have with Balo and Renew if you've used them throughout the game and a wide variety. This was an offensive game today where Indiana really played excellent offense. We'll talk about the defense a little bit later. But they had great transition. They had really good offensive sets. They had really good baseline out-of-bounds plays, and which shows what this team is capable of, and obviously opens up the question of why did it wait to the third game to show up, and Coach Moats and I will try to answer that as best as we can. But those of you who want to look for a glimmer of hope, look for the offensive side of the basketball today. I thought it was really, really the bright spot of today's game. And, not talking about the whole entire tournament, which we will get to. We're going to, again, focus on this 89-73 Providence wins. But our banner moment today, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel. They're in their 8th season of sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their 4th season as the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. They have the largest collection of vintage IU apparel. I'm wearing a Georgetown sweatshirt today. It's just the most comfortable thing that I could find after eating all that turkey yesterday. IU is their flagship school. They got started with the IU football program, high-quality gear, unique logos for IU and other schools. Recently launched a 10-win Indiana shirt, soon to be 11-win Indiana shirt. A Kurt Signetti Google Me shirt. Really, there's truly no better way to celebrate what's going on in Memorial Stadium than maybe getting a new Home Field Apparel shirt. They have a Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales are in full swing right now. So go to homefieldapparel.com right now. Well, maybe wait till after the show because Bob Moats has a lot of good things to say coming up. But when you're done listening to Coach Moats, you can take 30% off of everything with the promo code BFCM24. And I think there's a exclamation point at the end of that. I don't know if Jared just wanted me to really emphasize that or it's part of the promo. So the promo is BFCM24, possibly an exclamation point at the end. Go get that 30% off from Home Field Apparel. Wear one for the team. Okay, now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And the rest of our team is none other than the great Coach Bob Moats. Your thoughts on the win, 89-73 over the Providence Friars.
Always nice to get a win coming out after a weekend like this. The Feast Week festivities have always been, to me, this is short of the magical 2 weeks in March with the conference tournaments and then the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament. Some of the best basketball you're going to see, I think, as a fan, as a spectator, as a connoisseur of the game, is these weeks, or this week between basically the Thanksgiving Saturdays, and through Thanksgiving, the Saturday before Thanksgiving, all the way through the Sunday right after. And these games across the board didn't disappoint, but I would say from the IU perspective, you fly down to Paradise and Atlantis. There's a lot, and you have really it's like when you do travel basketball, and Coach, I know you've probably done your fair share of those Saturday tournaments where you go to. You go to Kokomo for the holiday invitational or the turkey trot or whatever they call it, wherever you go, and you're testing your team and you're testing their mettle, you're testing your ability to respond to it. In many respects, in the old days, you're preparing for a regional or semi-state final. And in travel ball, it's the same thing where you spend Saturday in pool play and then going into Sunday into single elimination, where you have literally no time to work on anything. So you have a rough outing. And then that rough outing can compound a game. And then maybe you get to another side of a bracket or another opponent, and you're able to kind of make some adjustments over the 48 hours that you're in the midst of the combat. And some things go a little better for you. And so you at least, so you learn a lot about your team while you're doing it. But you may take some bumps along the way. And I think, we can look at this as we go in the next, we have months to talk about seasons. But, I think that this program learned a few things about itself in these 72 hours in Atlantis. And it revealed a lot to the coaching staff, as well as the players, the fans. What we're really looking at, okay, so where do you go from here, for this season, and how do you continue to get better? And they learned a great deal, I think. And today it's much better. I mean, you'd rather be where Mike Woodson is right now than where Dan Hurley is where I'm going with this. That you'd rather be going out on a high note versus going out losing to Dayton by double digits and wondering, okay, are we back to the drawing board, or what are the things we have to fix in order to make this work? So I'll take it.
The question, well, you want to win. And the lessons are there to be learned if the players and the coaching staff are willing to really sit down and look at and they should, because that's what they get paid to do. But obviously this was not a good trip for the Indiana Hoosiers, and it was not what was expected when you set the schedule, that you were hoping to get a big benefit from your non-conference schedule in these 3 games, which now Indiana is going to be fighting to get some road wins in the Big Ten against the top echelon, which is very, very difficult, just to get some wins for that bracketology resume. Not impossible. We're not ending the season tomorrow because you lost 2 games in there, but it obviously was not the tournament that I think Coach Woodson and the players thought, or the fans thought was going to happen. And so today it was an important day, because it's even worse if you go home 0-3. But there are some caveats that everyone needs to understand, and I think most of our chat mob and everyone understands that in the 3 games, these tournaments, very little prep time, and Providence played last night until about midnight and had an 11-hour turnaround. Providence was without their best player. And that doesn't take away the positives that I will talk about first, and then we'll get to the defense, which is very questionable for our Indiana Hoosiers second, before we move on to another segment. So you got to take that with the whole, big holistic picture of what happened. This was not good, and if you learn lessons of why it wasn't good, and you get those fixed sooner rather than later, if you keep repeating, and I think that's the concern, and we'll get to this at the very end. I have a really good question for you at the end about it's year 4 and you're seeing some of the same things over and over again. Is the change going to happen? But today was if there's going to be a step to change, today offensively was one of the first steps that you have to take in getting a variety. We got Mbako back. I like Galloway playing more, and this isn't a negative towards Carlisle. I know he was hurt, but I think he's really struggled to find his niche as an Indiana Hoosier, and Galloway is a proven player. And sometimes you don't need to start to be a very effective player, but I do think that Trey Galloway added some punch offensively today. So I want to focus first on the positives today is the variety of offense. I thought transition was really good, pitching the ball ahead, the bigs running the floor. I thought, again, with my banner moment, the variety of stuff that they run. I love that little post-up Galloway ball screen in the short corner. They're trying to run some other things, which means it's in the playbook, Bob. And my question to you is, if it's in the playbook, why do we not run more of it? And did you agree that all of that stuff was somewhat effective today, and maybe more so effective when there was the smaller lineup on the floor offensively? Your thoughts in general about Indiana's offense?
1,000%. I mean, I think, and this is at some point they have to make a decision as to going back and looking at this and saying, do we really want to keep going back to this idea of smacking down into the post as much, where we're playing more hierarchical basketball? And, where, okay, we're trying to get the ball to two bigs. And I was having this thought as I was watching this game, thinking, it used to be you played through your bigs. And it used to be that you made sure that, you tried to work it through the high post, low post, trying to get the ball, just getting it in. That's how you got your penetration. And I still see that there's this mindset, this battle back and forth of, do you let your guards work in space and use your bigs in more level 2 and even more level 3 actions, versus trying to just get your bigs to be your triggers and your initiatings? And I would say that is something that, as we've looked at it, over the course of the last 4 years, you're still seeing a tug of war almost. And the tug of war is between playing the way that you've always played and having to innovate it with a new roster, and also realizing that offensively, you haven't been effective from time to time, and more frequently than not frequently, especially against higher level opponents. And I think at this moment, we have to look at the fact that, you have a lot of stuff in the playbook, and now you have the personnel to run it. So run it, and maybe make the determination that you have to maybe make the hard decision that Matt Painter made. You may love Omar Ballo as a coach, and you may love, Malik Renew as a coach, but the less time those two spend on the floor together, the better. I think we're beginning to see that more and more, that it's just, you got to open this thing up. You have the guys to do it. You might as well make it happen.
I think I saw some text or some tweets, and I didn't keep track of it all together today, but a couple initial runs when the small lineup was out there. I know it got back to 5 or 6 there before they brought Renew back in with 2 fouls. But in the second half, there was another push when they went small, and those are just details on tape. I believe wholeheartedly, Coach, that Mackenzie Mbako is our best offensive player.
Agreed.
You run stuff through your best offensive player, which then will elevate the other offensive players. You do not sit there and just let Mackenzie Mbako in the first 2 games of the tournament wait until the ball comes to him to shoot. I think that is the adjustment that I hope to see down the stretch. Is you need to get Mackenzie going early, get him going early in the second half, run some action for him, put him in that short corner ball screen. When they did that a little bit, he come off and hit a mid-range. He hit threes. Mm-hmm. Mackenzie Mbako is our best offensive threat. That doesn't mean the others aren't really good. I think they can still score. But Mackenzie Mbako is not only our best offensive threat, but it gives more flexibility to the offense, as you said, second and third level actions for post players. If you got to put every attention to all the sets and stuff you're running for Mackenzie, now it's going to open up stuff. And I thought we saw that tonight. And my thought was Mbako wasn't part of the offense for the most part in 2 games where Indiana really struggled. Mm-hmm. Today, again, it's Providence. Providence is not that good a team. And I know the fans are just like me. You're tired of having good games or 16-point wins against teams you're better at. Right. We got to compete with the Louisvilles, and we got to compete with the Gonzagas, as our head coach said. But what we got to do is we got to beat good teams, and we got to beat good teams not once or twice, just enough to get in a tournament. We got to beat them on a regular basis, and that goes through 2 things. Galloway is one of our better players, mm-hmm. and Mbako, you run stuff that's really good for them. The other players will be elevated. Agree or disagree?
Totally agree. And because I think that you have to put your offense in a position where they're going to be successful in guys in those areas where they're going to and you have to open up the lane is what it really comes down to. And if we're not opening the lane, if you're not getting that open, that all of a sudden you just can't run anything. Like you saw those for those first two games, there was so much congestion that, and even a guy like a Miles Rice, who we know is a high level point guard, the guy had nowhere to move. Trey Galloway had nowhere to penetrate, nowhere to attack. Mbako and Goody in the game at the same time can be very effective if you actually have less congestion in the lane, where you don't have three guys packing the lane against your drivers and your post player. And if Mbako, I think he is our best all around offensive player. You have to make sure he's featured, because the more they say, because the other thing is, and you see this possession after possession, as guys go through offensive patterns, as they go through reads, they're going to miss. If they start missing if they start missing your featured player, eventually you may find your featured player is just lost in your offense. And I feel like for 48 hours he was lost in the offense, and now they found him today. To your point about you look at Louisville, and you guys did a great job talking about that game 2 days ago, but you're better than Louisville talent wise. This team is a better team than Louisville
by far.
By far. I mean, off the charts. So there's really no reason for that, in that area. And then you go against Gonzaga, and you should be, with the talent you have, right up there with them as well. And you're definitely a step or two ahead of Providence. I would say two steps ahead. And so you get a nice win today. Okay, you get to at the very least, it's better to win than it is to lose. But this was expected. You're supposed to beat Providence by 18 points in a neutral site game. You're just
especially at the third game in 3 days when they got 11 hours of sleep, right?
Yeah, I mean, those guys. I mean, you look at the end of that game; those guys were rubber. I mean, those legs were pure rubber. And I mean, and again, we'll get to the defense later on some of this, but it's like, I agree wholeheartedly that it's like you've got to go through your, you basically have to make sure that your guys are getting shots, and especially a guy that shoots the ball as well as Mackenzie Mbako. And then all of a sudden, when you notice that Mackenzie Mbako gets fired up, guess who gets open for the rest of the game? Now it's Malik Renew. You're not forcing it. You're taking what the defense is giving you, and all of a sudden, you take what the defense is giving you, and all of a sudden you start finding that the defense is having to adjust there, and they're leaving other places on the floor open. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, this was, again, holistically, not good in a lot of respects. Can you see some lights here and there? Of course you can. But I think at the same time, it was good that we put ourselves into in a position where it's like, the lessons are there if you choose to listen to them. The lessons are there if you choose to learn from them.
It's an identity. Every club needs an identity, and as soon as you define your identity and practice to your identity, then you can go and try to win basketball games. But even our head coach said, wow, what's your identity? We're still trying to figure out what we're doing offensively. We're not really there defensively. And the excuse of having 7 new players is out the window, because Louisville had 13. Illinois has 10. Like, everyone has new players now.
And a new
coach.
So
you have to do it. You have to identify your program. You have to build it in the offseason. You have to maybe go through a little bit of struggles early, but you cannot afford in college basketball right now to not have an identity. And I don't know that Indiana has an identity that they can just really dig down foundational every game and win tough basketball games. Now, again, that can be found. Teams find it early in the season. Teams find it in January. Teams find it wherever. Indiana under Mike Woodson has found that a little too late for me. And this team is on that path again. I don't know. Are they an Mbako identity? Are they going to be extremely post? We have yet to talk about the defense. But I will say this, to be positive, Indiana put up 89 points. Mm-hmm. They ran some things that we hadn't seen before, which does give glimmers of hope that they are maybe finding that identity of multiple ways of attacking, not just playing one way. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about. I said this. Yeah, go ahead.
That's all I'm saying too. And I want to be clear on that. That it's like if you're looking for something from if you're looking from a coaching perspective, when you have a weekend like this, you have to have something to build off of, and they have something to build off of. I mean, they at least have something. If they choose to go there, they can build off this and figure out that maybe it's not just playing harder. Maybe it's not just we gotta give it the go 1-2. It's more like, okay, structurally, maybe we were behind the 8 ball on the whole idea of identity. We may have gotten some things wrong. How do we adjust to it? I just sat in a gym full of 12-year-olds before this game, and we were talking about what we were doing offensively. It's like how we've evolved over the season. It's like we when we saw something wasn't working, we made an adjustment and we kind of continue to flow through it. And if you're sitting there with and when they're on this plane ride back and they're watching the video and they're kind of going through the how do we handle the next 72 hours for our next game, you've got to be in a position where that's where if you're gonna you don't have until Big Ten season to right the ship. You better learn it. You better learn it fast. And I mean, and again, I'd rather be in a position where you're coming out of that with a win because you saw some things that worked, and that helps get buy-in from your kids.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I said this after the Louisville. I'm really impressed with our chat and the people in there. One, you're handling everything that we agree. You're probably saying things that we want to say, and we've just chosen to kind of not go there. But your basketball knowledge is really showing up. Our guard play was not very good overall in the tournament. Miles Rice struggled. Carlisle struggled. Galloway struggled until today. Mbako struggled. Tucker. Indiana's guards have to play better. I've always said it's a guards game, but if you don't have high-level play out of your guards, and then someone else, Tony, in there, that was who said that? Tony and Tyler were having a good discussion about guard play, and they are both correct. Like, our guards didn't play. Are they just having a bad run, or are they not as high level as everyone thought they were preseason? That's yet to be determined. And then Tony says, or is the offense bogging down what the guards can do and putting them in situations like we still have questions after 7 games at 5-2 that we thought might have been answered earlier. I think our chat is spot on this stuff here today. And I really, it makes our job really easy when it's not a negative Nancy and scream at each other, and you guys are having really good discussions on there. You elevate what we do on the show. I know we're all frustrated, and I know we're probably all in the same boat with what is going on, but you guys are doing a really good job of looking at the basketball parts of it, I think, and so kudos to our chat. Before we move on to segment 2, I do want to ask, our defense is just not acceptable right now. At times we put a good ball pressure, we get some deflections, and that leads to some points, but it's just not consistent at all. I think it was close to 1.2 points per possession, and that's with bad shooting at the very end. I don't have that. I should go see that right now. The visitor stats, and I thought they struggled 1.106, but it was 1.27 before the last 4 minutes, when obviously the legs in the game got away. In this situation against a less talented team playing their third game, a lot of shots at the rim, a lot of penetration at the rim, a lot of ball watching, in my opinion. That, in order to win big games, probably needs to be more important than even the identity on offense. Your thoughts about Indiana's defense specifically today against Providence?
We're still watching when a team lifts a big and Balo is out of position, that there's really there's no backside help. And so there were several situations where a wide open layup, wide open dunk is there because there's nobody that's coming over and disrupting what's going down Broadway right now. And I'm not really sure where help is supposed to come out of now with Balo in this position. I think, Woodson, for the first time in 4 years, he now has a battleship as his big man. He doesn't have a fast attack carrier. And I guess that's a way of putting it where it's like, when you think about Trace Jackson Davis and Khalil Ware, they were quicker to come off. They could respond faster. And Balo just doesn't have the same quickness those guys have to be able to get back into position. So how do you redesign your defense and your help structure? Because the help was exposed for 3 straight days, and exposed in a way that shows that there was no help. That it was just like, and you're leaving it wide open on the worst possible place, which is going north-south on a cut to the basket with with two guys trying to stop the basketball. That's a huge concern. How many open threes did Providence have today? More than most teams would give up. So it's the same problem, just in a different area, where now you're opening up that whole weak side of the court on a three, on a level 3 read that every team in the world runs now at every level of the game. That every guard knows, okay, hey, that guy's out of position, this guy's wide open, kick it to him, and there's a wide open 3-point shot. And Providence, they shoot a lot of threes. They also don't hit a lot of threes compared to some of the guys we're seeing. A similar problem we had against Louisville and Gonzaga translates over the next day. And that and the defensive stuff needs to be cleaned up, and needs to be cleaned up quick. Because the other thing is, with the way the help scheme or lack thereof is working, with the size and the physicality you have on the court, you should be able to out rebound your opponents more effectively than IU's been showing. They're not cleaning it when we've had this issue repeatedly where we're just not cleaning up the boards. And you kind of saw, again, it was the same thing today, where you had several times where Providence just had opportunities to get offensive rebounds versus IU's, defense.
Yeah, it comes back to identity, Coach. What kind of identity? What are you going to do on the defensive end too? And it comes down. It comes down to structure. I think we have two guys in Mbako and Renew, who are fantastic offensive players, like out of this world. Renew can pass, he scores down low, he can shoot the three. Mbako, a variety of ways. I mean, they are really, really good offensively. I think equally as bad defensively. I think Mbako's closeouts and basketball understanding, while it's getting better, and I think he's the better defender of the two, and he has made huge strides defensively, I still think he gets caught ball watching. I don't know that he is a solid rebounder on the defensive end, and I just think Renew is really struggling, and to be nice, really struggling on the defensive end from the fouling that's been his calling card for years. There was a corner three where he was open to the ball in the short corner, not guarding the ball, not guarding anything, watching the ball. The ball went to the corner, and he just kind of put up his hand. He didn't close out, and the guy knocks down the three. And that was right after he scores inside and gets an and one and then starts pumping his chest. Like, Malik, you got to play championship level on both ends, son. Like, you are an incredible offensive player, and we appreciate that, but you give up a lot of points on the other end, and that has to be emphasized in film. And if he doesn't, then play Ballo for a while. Like, there were times in this tournament where Indiana played better when Renew was on the bench, specifically because they could get after it defensively. Now, to that kid's defense, he's a 5, and he's out playing a 4, getting switched on to 3s and 2s, and he's out on the 3-point line, and we get mad at him for rebounding, but he's outside doing where he really is a center. And so some of that is, again, identity and structure and theme. But, man, it just gets old to see guys dribble in, 2 guys in the lane, dunk, no one diving down. Like, we gave a lot of points on dump-offs. We got beat. The ball pressure's nice, but you got to be able to contain the bounce. I just think we've got to, again, we're missing identities for Indiana basketball. What is Indiana basketball? We do not know. The fans do not know. I'm not sure the coaching staff knows. I don't know the players know game in, game out. What are the core values that you are absolutely going to be held accountable to? When those are held accountable, we see it in the NFL. The Bears just fired their coach. Why? Because he doesn't have a core set of values. Great guy, knows his football, really good defensive coordinator, really bad head coach. Set your core values. Sometimes you do that and you lose. And you have a losing season. I'm not saying that's the telltale, but I'm not sure I can identify that. And so, I just struggle. We got really good offensive players, and they don't play with the intensity that they need to win big, tough games like was in the battle for Atlantis.
When we get right down to it, and I keep going back to this thing, we're all about winning we want to win the matchup. It's all about winning the matchup. Everything offensively and defensively comes down to you have to win your matchup. And when you don't have plan B for when the matchup breaks down, this is what you see. And I'm at that point from, just pure style, structurally, you got to put your guys in position to be successful, and you got to hold, and they have to hold themselves accountable. You have to help them hold themselves accountable. And in a situation where you go like Malik Renew, who needs, if you're going to put him on the perimeter, then you need to make sure you're emphasizing what he needs to do or how he needs to do it. Because I think right now we're not seeing it. We're just not seeing it. And again, take the good, take the bad, take the fact that where we are right now as a program, we could be doing a lot better.
Yeah, and if that's what comes out of the battle for Atlantis and we can make those adjustments and get moving faster, then this win will lead to better play. But we're still back into a must-see-it, I think, type of mentality for me. I'll see it when I believe it, right?
And to be clear, every time I do these things, whether I do it with Mike on X's and Joe's or what have you, the MO has always been, okay, so where do you go from here? Because I think the first question you ask as a coach is, after anything, what's next? What do we do? What are we doing today to prepare for tomorrow to get ourselves where we need to be? And I'm looking at it from that vantage point of, okay, so if I'm looking at this from that area, what does this program need to do? I think we're getting into that, and we're going to get into that a little more as this goes on.
All right, coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's victory over the Providence Friars today in the battle for Atlanta's 7th-place game, I'll point out today's meaningful moments you might have missed. We'll go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call, so stick with us.
Hey guys, it's Gene Steratore, CBS officiating analyst and retired Big Ten basketball official. I have never listened to the Assembly Call, and to be honest, I don't intend to. But if you listen, make sure you ignore anything Ryan says about officiating. He's really good from the seat of his pants, but I wouldn't trust him on the court with a whistle around his neck. Time has proven him wrong on virtually everything. Take care. We'll talk soon.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm the coach, Brian Tonsoni, here with Coach Bob Moats. We're breaking down Indiana's 89-73 win over the Providence Friars today in the battle for Atlantis. It's now time for meaningful moments you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience Indiana University athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and fans. To learn more about how you can donate money or extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. That's HoosierTicketProject.org. I think we'll just run through this real quick, Bob. I'll turn it over to you in a second for any meaningful moments. But the one that really I thought pushed Indiana to this victory came in the second segment of the first half. Indiana had just given up a three because of overhelp at the nail, and it was 13-10, I believe, at that time, and then a 7-0 run, and led by Gallo. Gallo got a steal, fed M'Baku. He got an and one. Rice hit a basket, and then Hatton came in and got a basket, and that 7-0 pushed it to 20-13. And Indiana kind of was able to keep it at that and extend the lead from there. You need those runs in a game, and then you need those runs and then stay at that hopefully advantage, not deficit. And Indiana did that throughout the day, regardless of what we think defensively or whatever. But they were able to keep that margin at about 7 or 8 for most of the rest of the first half, and then in the second half able to stretch it out. But I'm going to take this time to ask you about Hatton's play. He had 6 minutes against Gonzaga, found his way to the free throw line. I was pretty impressed. I mean, he's never going to be a major minute guy, but the young man hadn't played for a while, come in, was ready, and really contributed in 2 games, especially I thought was on the court when Indiana stretched the lead and really kind of took over this game today. Your thoughts on Hatton's play today?
Thought that he offers a whole different, look for Indiana when he's in the game, and like when you put Hatton in there, and let's say you have oh geez, Rice, Rice, Galloway, Mbako, and Goody and Hatton, you can truly play 5 out. And I think getting him moving in space and kind of, where he's in the right place at the right time. He's where he's supposed to be offensively. He doesn't clog the lane. He doesn't get in the way. And he scores the way that a big man, he doesn't really score the way that Woodson tries to use his big men. He's actually there picking up the points. He picks up his opportunities by just being in the right place at the right time and then allowing ball penetration, or also in the case where the shooters are there, he's in that position to be able to get that open layup or that open look or that offensive rebound that's a putback, or get the ball in that position. He gets fouled and he's a good free throw shooter, which allows him to get to the line and convert. Defensively, he's not as physical, but I think at the same time, he didn't totally kill. When you compare what we were talking about earlier with Malik versus where Hatton is, sometimes Hatton gets beat. That's why you have help schemes. But he's where he needs to be when he needs to be there. And I think, you're not going to play him 30 minutes. You're not going to play him 20 minutes. But if you need a guy to come in for a 4-minute burst, that meaningful moment that we're talking about, because the meaningful moment for me was, when Renew came off the floor and then they were able to spread space it out. It's the same thing. I think we're around the same time in the game there, where then Indiana just was able to get some separation and go and just go through. And then Hatton comes in and the rest of it is kind of flows through. So I don't know, in this situation, I think Hatton played, he did exactly what he's supposed to do, played his role well, and really did a great job over the last 2 days of just being a glue guy that this program desperately needs.
One other moment for me that is a positive is when Providence decided to go to zone, because Indiana came out and was able to effectively run some offense in the second half and get a lead. Then they tried to go zone. And really all year long, I think Indiana's zone offense has been pretty good. I like that little 1-4 high. And the keys to zones is always to try to get that ball into the middle, whether it's a passing, a high-low, or a flash, or whatever. Get the ball to that high post, and then the defense collapses. You can find shooters. You can dump it down to the low post. And you can sometimes ball screen to get into that. A lot of teams ball screen to get that ball into the middle. I thought Indiana did that really well. Renew had a really nice kick out for, I believe, a Trey Galloway 3. But they were in it 3 or 4 possessions. And you talk about stretching the lead. Indiana had a 9, 10, 11-point lead at that point and just stretched out to where Indiana could withstand one of those last Providence runs that got it back to 9-8 because of their effectiveness. And really what it is when people are in right positions and know where people are going to be. And I just think that is one of the strengths right now of this Indiana offense, is that when teams play zone, Indiana has the ability with the players and the talent, but they also do a good job strategizing. Again, I'm in a very critical place with the program overall, but I'm going to find positives as well. I think that's just fair. I think the out-of-bounds plays that Woodson draws up, and I think his zone offense is some of the strengths that he has right now, but I was impressed with the zone offense.
Yeah, I was too, and I think at one point when they brought in, that's where, if you're going to use high-low, that's where you use your high-low. Like when a team switches to zone and you have your 2 bigs, that's when you start looking to that high-low action that IU likes to run, because then it's really hard to guard, especially if you're spacing with shooters. And if you have a Trey Galloway that's hitting, if you have, pick another one at that point in time. Just forcing, putting that ball into that position where they can just kind of, again, Malik can hit Ballo in those types of situations. Malik's a pretty good passer, and he's getting better. He sees the floor pretty well, but in that, that they had to try something, and they tried a 2-3 zone. They also tried it at the end of the first half too. That was
after a timeout, I believe.
They did an ATO, and then it kind of threw IU off a little bit. But like you said, you can definitely ball screen a zone. They could have done the same thing there. It's just being able to kind of make that quick adjustment on the fly. Do
you have other moments, Bob?
I think we hit most of them. I think the big one for me was when Malik Renew came off the floor. That was and just what usually kills this program. I'm going to take a little different angle on that a bit. They had to figure it out. They had to figure it out fast, and that's when all of a sudden it just seemed like everything opened up. And although Rice's offensive line wasn't great today, such from a scoring standpoint, hasn't been great, these last 3 days. I think that was something where it's like you can definitely see that they're, for me, it's meaningful because it shows me what the talent on this roster can do. That you have, even and just and I like you, I'm kind of tired of looking at 4 to 8 minute spots and going, boy, there's so much promise here.
Yeah,
I'm just
right.
Boy,
I want 40 minutes of that.
I want 40 of this, not 4. And then it's like, going in, and I even think it's going out at halftime, meaningfully speaking, it's like there was a moment going after that. They come out of timeout and I get this distinct impression that there's this, there's an instruction of, it's great you guys are all scoring, but let's get it to Ballo.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like they're forcing the ball. It's like they come ATO, and it's like, especially if Malik and Omar haven't gotten a few touches down there, it's been a couple, 3 segments. Doesn't matter that we're scoring. We got to get those guys scoring. I think it was coming out of, I think, the under 8 of the sequence we're talking about. First play ATO, right in that high-low, right, trying to force the ball into the post. And it's like, is it the kids are coming back and saying, boy, we got to get Omar a touch, or did they hear that instruction coming in and we got to we got to start playing through our bigs again? And
what you emphasize
is that what the identity of this team is? Is that maybe the man's just not saying what the identity is in press conference, but and actions speak louder than words. And like it's as you know, you and I are both in this spot right now. We're saying, okay, here are the lights at the end of the tunnel. This is where it could be worse because you've been here. You're not playing particularly great. You're losing games, and you got to go in a room full of kids and your coaches and then their parents and a community and say, hey, here's how we're going to get out of this. And so you're not a sunshine pumper. You're not overly optimistic. You try to find the magic on the magical thing that you have on the bottom of your shoe, and as you're scraping it off, saying, well, at least it wasn't this on the bottom of the shoe. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at this right now. Like, okay, I could choose to spend the next 3 months miserable, but I'm at least, for the intellectual exercise for me is, how do you get out of this if you're in this position? And I think at this point,
that's what good coaching does. And again, you guys can read this. You're listening to this. You can read. Good coaching sits there every day. It's like, I just got fired. What do I need to do better? Or we just lost a game. What do I need to do better? Even after a win, what do I need to do better? What adjustments can I make? It doesn't mean you always change for change's sake, because that's not good either. But if there are changes to made, I think good coaching makes them, because the bottom line is winning, getting in the tournament, and advancing to a Sweet 16, Elite 8. And if things aren't working, I like winning. I love my mom to death, but I'd kick her out of the car if it meant Indiana basketball would win. She can walk, get her walker out there and push it along the road, and she'll be fine. We'll win basketball games. Hey, one last moment, and this is, it's Thanksgiving. One moment that no one saw, but I just did on this television. It must be colder than snot up at Wisconsin, because the Wisconsin marching band lines were so out of whack. I couldn't even tell if they were marching. And it was like, I've never seen a marching band with such discombobulated lines than the Wisconsin band at halftime to the TV up here to my right. I mean, we're talking about bad performances. That band director needs to go in and make sure, no matter what the weather is, you're performing instead of 80,000 people. Hit the lines together. Shine the turn up a little bit. Let's go. Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's right. All right, that came out of the left field, but now it's time to go inside the numbers. Brought to you by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or by visiting jacksonhewitt.com. All right, Bob, it's time for stats. One of the things that I thought was really good, and when you have a 3-game turnaround and legs and mental fatigue are part of the program, Indiana has 10 turnovers. I thought they managed that aspect of the game after having games of They had 12 against Gonzaga, so it wasn't bad, but 23 against Louisville in game one when they were fresh. Indiana has to take care of the basketball if they're going to be effective like we think they can be, and was shown today offensively.
I think so. And I would say that, the ball moved today a little better. And when the ball moves a little better, when you start seeing some things happen, turnovers get. But I mean, yeah, if you're dribbling right into three guys, you're going to turn the ball over a bunch. And I think that they took better care of the ball because they were looking to attack. They were looking to attack the defense. And again, I think that was a lot of what we were talking about earlier, where they just weren't trying to be one-dimensional. They actually were being multi-dimensional, multifaceted, and trying to get the ball in the right place at the right time, not to the right person, but to the right spot on the floor where the defense was vulnerable.
Yeah, another stat I'll throw your way is Indiana was 8 of 15 from three for 53.3% today. 15 shots out of 60 is only 25% usage. And this is one of those lessons that we were just hoping the light bulb comes on. You had Mbako 4 for 7. You had Galloway 3 for 4, leading the way 7 for 11 for those two. And, again, coming out of your timeout, those guys are working. Go with the hot hand maybe. But, again, Indiana is shooting the ball at a decent clip again, just not getting the volume. I know we beat that horse to death, and it's not, and we probably need to stop but they were effective from three today, and I thought that really at times gave Indiana momentum when you see Mbako on a transition three, when you see Goody. I love that at the 10:58 mark of the first half, he come over heel toe, boom. He's not just a set shooter, right? He can shoot that, and he got another two off of that play where he had to shot fake and come in. Like you have guys there. Goody was 1 for 1, so you're maybe your best shooters were 8 for 12 from 3-point line. I just I love that three ball, I guess.
Well, it's 2024. We're going to be in 2025 here in 30 days, 32 days. We're in the future, and the future is an open offensive space plan where you're utilizing the three ball, and it's critical because you want to open up the inside. Yeah, what you want to move guys off help lines. The more 3-pointers you shoot, what kept Providence in this game up until maybe the last under 8, they shot the three ball, and they shot a lot of them, and then
10 of 30.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and that's still not a bad percentage. It's not a great, it's about median for the country, but they shoot 10 to 30, and IU, it completely opens up the interior for them so that their bigs and their cuts are more effective. Because if they're shooting 33-pointers, if you don't adjust to it and you give them wide open looks, they're going to go from a 30% rate to a 40 to 50% rate fairly easily, and that's just something, again, IU has got to figure that part out. That I think we all beat the drum on this one. Yeah, we talk about it almost every game where it's like the volume's got to go up. It's not, we're not playing Whitey Herzog small ball anymore where you're just trying to steal bases and not hit home runs. The game has changed. And
you don't just shoot threes just to shoot threes. You call actions that you could have a post up and a three,
yep.
And then you emphasize we're okay with either one. It goes back to what you said, that what's emphasized coming out of the ATOs, but is the emphasis in practice, we got to go inside, we got to get a paint touch, and all of those are philosophically good. Like I'm telling everyone, it's not bad basketball to want to get a post touch, to want to get the ball in the lane and play inside out. But there are so many ways you can design plays and actions and everything else where you have a post feed, you have a three, you have a drive opportunity, and then teach your players to take the advantage of it. What happens is you start seeing that volume go up because you have the options. But if you are only looking for the post 60% of the time, pull up 25% of the time, and threes 15% of the time, and you don't lay that out. Coach Woodson doesn't lay that out, but sometimes as coaches, what you emphasize and how you talk and everything gets in players' minds, and those end up kind of being numbers of where players, like he says, I got to get it in the post, I delay my shot, or I have a drive, but I got to look into the post. Sometimes we can overcoach good philosophy too. as coaches. We've all done it where, I had a team once where I was like, feed the hogs. You got to go feed the hogs. We were a rural school. And to the other kids, I didn't realize they were like, I can't shoot. They were interpreting that as I can't shoot instead of when there's a good opportunity for our better players, the ball needs to go there. So coaching is very, very it's intriguing because sometimes your intentions don't end up being the results. You don't get the results that you intended, and you get the opposite of what you intended because of how it's perceived and that, and you've really got to be on top of that. But it comes down to emphasizing. I want to go back to you real quick. You talked about offensive rebounds, 17 offensive rebounds for a team that's undersized today. I think Providence also beat Indiana on second chance points, 21-14. That seems to be a trend that continued this week that needs to be cleaned up going forward.
I think, there's always a thing of, well, when you shoot the ball better, there's fewer opportunities, but you're still looking at such a massive discrepancy here. And again, this is a game that you're not supposed to give that. Your guards, everyone, especially on long rebounds, you should be scrapping to the ball, or at the very least shielding those offensive players from getting the ability to rebound. I think you're right. When you mentioned ball watching, we see ball watching on rebounding as well. I was watching Notre Dame at like 2:30 in the morning right before Thanksgiving. They were playing Houston. Did you see? I
couldn't stay up.
I'm an insomniac, and probably nuts, but not probably. But the point is, I'm watching Micah Shrewsbury's guys pinning Houston to the baseline, giving up something. They're not, maybe the guy that's blocking out, and one of the big misnomers is you block out to get the rebound. Oftentimes you block out to keep somebody else from getting it, so that your guy who's shielding
that is so correct. That is such a good point to make.
It's just like cutting on offense. You don't cut to get the damn basketball. You cut because it moves the defense, and then somebody else gets it. And if somebody cuts for you, then you're the one lifting, or you're the one getting the action. It's giving something up for yourself. And the question I go back to is, are we doing that?
So I found a stat here. There's a new thing. I don't know if I've sent it to you where this young man has all this college basketball scores. When you click on a box score, it gives you some key stats. Indiana's offensive rebounding percentage was 36.7, but Providence was 39.5. So they almost got 40%. Yeah. 4 out of every 10 shots that they missed, Providence got. And again, I believe in the analytics. I don't have them memorized. I don't have access to go get what the better teams are. I can go to Ken Palm, and I'm probably going to do that this afternoon. But 40% against Providence seems like a number that Indiana does not want to continue going forward offensive rebounding. Is that correct? You're more into those numbers than me.
So, and again, that the percentage of offensive rebounds, is the key component point, right, as well as second chance points. When you look at, because the one is one is the ultimate result, and the other one basically shows proportionally how you're rebounding the basketball. And so you're telling me on a team with 2 centers and at times, or a center and 2 power forwards playing at the same time with height advantages in both their guard spots, we're 60-40 on rebounding. When the median, I think, is 35, you should be in a game like this well below the median. You should be cleaning up the boards, because you're just giving the other team more opportunities to score the basketball. Oh, and knowing full well that your best 3-point looks come off of offensive rebounds usually. Like if you want, unless you're in transition on pitch aheads, your best 3-point looks are usually not necessarily off of any sort of half court actions. It's off of offensive rebound to a kick out, wide open shooter, and they drill it. And that, to me, it's something they have to clean up, and it has to continue to get cleaned up.
So again, I could talk to you all day about basketball. So I went to Bart Torvik, and you can look at defensive rebounding percentage, and you can then the best team in the nation is UC Irvine at 17.3 percentage. They're giving up rebounds, right? That's how to read that.
Yep.
Defensive rebounding percentage. Is that right? Or
I think
is that
so.
the wrong stat to look at?
And again, I know you
no.
Torvik. Let me jump. Yeah, because if you go to Ken Palm, like what you would do is
offensive rebounding, defensive rebound. I don't know if that's.
Let me look at offensive. the D1 average is 30%. But so let's look at Indiana real quick. Like the best offensive rebounding team in the country, St. Mary's, they're getting 46% right now. Northern Iowa's at 16%, and they're at the so that's that they're the worst. But defensively, you're wanting to look at it. Yeah, Northern Iowa's only. Yeah, hold on. Let me change it.
Yeah,
I change the filter. UC Irvine. So they're only giving up. They're giving in. So when out of 5 shots, they're only getting less than one of them is an offensive rebound.
So that's how you read it when it reads defensive rebounding percentage at 17.3. Right. That means they're only giving up 17.3 offensive rebounds, right?
Right. You got it.
And then, okay. That's what they give up, and then the offensive rebounding percentage in these analytics is so. Yeah, that's something Indiana has to clean up. Sorry, we went basketball nerd there for a while.
Yeah,
but that's what Bob and I do.
We're using 2 sites. We're kind of and we're trying to figure out and help you guys along. So like if you're on Ken Palm, what you do is you check offensive rebounding on your defensive side, and that tells you what your percentages are. And kind of the opposite of using Tor. But regardless, you got to do better at it. You got to do better in these areas because, again, 30%, and if you're 10% above that out of a 70 possession, or if there's 40 rebounds or whatever, that's 4 extra opportunities you're giving an opponent, and an opponent that will use that to get back into a basketball game.
Yeah, and you're never going to be the top team maybe necessarily in anything. Someone has to be the top, but if the top teams are in the below 30 and you're giving up 40 in a game, that shows that this was way too many today. And it's just been a trend that, again, if Indiana's going to compete for a Big Ten title, if they're going to win some games on the road, which is what they're going to have to do now in the Big Ten to get into the tournament, you've got to shore up. When you do play good defense, you've got to shore up and finish the possession with defensive rebounding. Any stats from today's game? Or even Gonzaga, if you want to go back that way. I have both box scores up. Anything, Bob, you want to talk about?
I would say that the big thing for what free throw shooting was really good across was really good again. 85% from the line. But inside those numbers, why you want another reason why I think you and I would agree on this. Like if we were sitting here and we were trying to workshop this, going, they missed 5 free throws, I believe, on the game.
They were 7, or they did, or we were 17 of 20. Balo was the only one who missed.
That's my point.
He was 2 of 5.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So 17 to 20, right? Yeah. So we missed 3 free throws. All 3 were Balo. Half of our looks were our 2 bigs. So out of the 20 free throws, 10 of them were taken either by Malik or by Omar Balo. Would we not rather see our guards or our better free throw shooters getting those opportunities?
Yes.
So what it comes down to, so again, key statistic, it's great. Shoot 85% from the line. Again, that's better not just than this program does, but better than what most programs do. Everybody we were perfect from the line with the exception of one player. But are the right guys getting to the free throw line? Mike Weemuth talks about that a lot when we talk about this, where it's like, look who's shooting free throws for IU versus who's shooting free throws for other programs. You're going to want, and that's where, again, getting it back to your ball handlers, to your drivers makes a huge difference, because those are the guys you want at the line versus maybe the guys that are 65, 70% free throw shooters.
It's interesting you say that, because, and I know it's different levels, but my son's program won JV and varsity the other night against the school that I teach at, and the Rossville High School has a really nice 6'2" sophomore, little thin guard, and I was gonna talk to my son about, hey, when it comes crunch time, get that kid a post touch or get that kid an elbow touch where he can turn and go to the rim and get him fouled, because they had to hold on with some bad foul shooters, making one, missing one, whatever, and it kind of got dicey. Like, you can design through your offense too who you believe will get fouled or put them in positions to get fouled to get to the foul line. I think that's really good. Hey, before we go to our game ball segment in segment 3, I want to ask you about Luke Goody. I thought this was his best game as an Indiana Hoosier. His stat line, since we're talking numbers, 9 points, 2 or 3 from the field, hit his only three-pointer, coming off a pin screen at 10:58 of the first quarter, 4 for 4 free throw line, 3 rebounds, an assist, no turnovers, a block in 25 minutes, was +7 on the day. Coming off yesterday where he showed extreme leadership and demanding, he backs it up today, and that's what you want. He backs it up. I thought he was all over the place today, even in non-stat categories. Luke Goody today, Coach, your thoughts?
Ball goes on the floor, Luke Goody's right on top of it, and he's on the floor with the other guy. I mean, I saw that a couple times today out of him. Played pretty well defensively too, I thought. I mean, I thought, there were some times where he would get beat, but there were times where he was in better positioning. And again, I think there's also a verbal and even nonverbal leadership that he's providing this program, that by playing the way he plays, he's still, he basically is showing guys, this is the path that you have to do to win in the Big Ten. And for some of these guys who are even sophomores who are coming in from the Pac-12, or a kid like Bryson Tucker, watching this guy as a fifth-year senior workhorse his way through this, I'm taking advantage of shots when he gets an opportunity, doing the little things that matter on a basketball court. And I would just think that at the end of the day, he's earned his 20 minutes a game. I'll put it that way. Like, they're going to want to keep this guy on the floor as much in that type of situation, and putting him in a position where, whether he's in the game or not, he's still going to influence the team. But I think that today was by far his best. And I really think over the course of the week, I think the one guy you looked up, if you look at a guy who was trying to provide leadership here, Luke Goody was doing this for 3 days in the Bahamas, that he was being a consummate professional, consummate college basketball player. So, I mean, definitely somebody who IU is going to need to rely on from now until the end of the season, and is doing, and just because he does his job,
Yeah, and that's good to see. The kid wanted to play here, and I thought he's coming along quite a bit here for our Indiana Hoosiers. Okay, coming up here on the Assembly Call, we're going to hand out our game balls, our Hoosier Hustle Award, discuss a lingering question or two, and look ahead to Indiana's upcoming opponent. That's all next here on the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm the coach, Brian Tonsoni, here with Coach Bob Moats. We're breaking down Indiana's 89-73 victory over the Providence Friars. It's now time for our game balls presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. They want to help you protect your home's air quality, and the best way to do that is to stop water at the source. Voted best of B-Town in basement services for 4 years running. Their basement waterproofing and crawl space encapsulation is the best defense your home can have against mold growth and structural damage. Mention Assembly Call and get 10% off your system. Call today for a free estimate, or if you just want to hear Allie talk about Kurt Signetti for an hour, give him a call. Learn more at bloomenvironmental.com. All right, Coach. Who's going to get your game ball for this victory?
This is a rough one because I'm down to, I think Mackenzie Mbako earned it. But I also think you can make a strong case for Trey Galloway. I'm going to give it to Mbako just because I think that this was a game where, I think across the board, he played, especially on the offensive end, came out of his shell against, for the, and really just was very, how do I put this? Very powerful, just was a powerful presence on the court, I think. But I still think, again, we had a couple guys that actually played extremely well today. And from a game ball standpoint, Mbako, the way he shot it, the way he just kind of pulled defense, made it possible for others to be successful. He made everybody around him better.
I thought, we've talked about some of his struggles defensively, and they're there for McKenzie. But today, offensively, I thought he played within himself, looked for his shots, did what he could do, and led the team in scoring 25 points, and just sets the tone with his ability to score the basketball. I'm with you. I really thought long and hard about Trey Galloway because I thought his presence today in the starting lineup was a boost that Indiana needed. I know that he has been overcoming injuries and hasn't quite been himself, and I think someone, coach in Woodson, said in the post game that this is the first day that he felt, a little bit back to normal, and I think it showed in getting 30 minutes of action. So Trey Galloway would be the other one, but I'm with you. I'm gonna go with Mbako for the game ball. So that let's see, that is Mackenzie's third on the season. Congratulations to that young man on obtaining our game ball. And now it's time for the Hoosier Hustle Award, sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services.
The Hoosier Real Hustle Award.
Hi, this is Anthony Leal, reminding you to check out our friends at Evansville Security Services. Based in the hometown of IU legend Calvert Chaney, Evansville Security Services has been providing off-duty police officers to businesses and individuals since 2001. In other words, they're in the business of prevention and peace of mind. And remember, prevention cannot be measured. To learn more about how Evansville Security Services can help you preserve your peace of mind by preventing bad outcomes, visit evansvillesecurityservices.com. That's evansvillesecurityservices.com.
Thanks, Anthony. I think this is a two-man race as well, Coach, so I'm interested to see where you're headed with the Hoosier Hustle Award.
I was going to say Langdon Hatton, to be perfectly honest.
Well, maybe it's a three-man Hustle Award then.
And the
Get ready, chat mob.
I threw Hatton out there because I'm like, he got out there and just did the stuff. And, his stat line wasn't great, only 8 minutes. But when he got out there, I mean, he hustled enough. He basically got out there and just did enough out there, sealing guys off, being in the right place at the right time, getting, just every he left him in a better position leaving the floor than they were in when he got on the floor. And I just felt like when this was, if there was going to be a game for him to get one, this is it. This is the one that at this point he's got it there. And so I'm going to throw him on. I mean, you can make a case for, I think you can make a case for Luke Goody. I think you can make a case for Trey Galloway. But I mean, I think that in this situation, for what they needed and when he came in and did it, that's the other part of it. When he came in and did it the first, that was there. So I was okay. I'll go there. Hatton it is.
Oh, dang. Because I had those other two. I was debating Goody and Galloway. Let me make the argument, and then maybe the chat mob can sway me where to go on this. But I thought Galloway, with his deflections, his hustle, his passing, rebounding, a complete game. I thought he was all over the place. And again, I think Goody had a good game. I'm going to go Galloway because I think his play overall had some hustle, the best hustle capabilities to do all of that stuff in 30 minutes coming off. So chat mob, if you would, it's Galloway or Hatton. Throw your votes in there. I see someone has, Michael has Hatton. Your thoughts, if you would help us make that choice to give it to either Hatton or Galloway. And producer Eddie, if you can watch that, and no matter what number of votes we get, we'll go with whoever you think there. So pick a hustle award, and we'll go from there. Now it's time for the lingering question. And Bob, we can spend as much time or as little time as possible on this, but Indiana kind of scheduled this year to come out of the Bahamas with some quality wins in their non-conference and they didn't obtain that. So the lingering question is, can Indiana overcome a disappointing trip. And there's just no other way to color it. It was a disappointing trip, regardless of the 89-73 win. Disappointing in the results, the effort in the game one, the technique and defense and offense in game two, and then the defense and rebounding. There were a lot more negatives from the Indiana Hoosiers than there were positives in this 3-day event. And so the lingering question is, we've kind of answered it in multiple ways about lights and tunnels and all those kinds of things, but what does it take for Indiana to get back to where they need to be, or to get where they need to be in the first place? Maybe they haven't ever been there. And what do we as fans, what can we expect, and what should we do going forward? I guess that's just my lingering question as a fan myself of how to interpret where Indiana basketball is at 5-2 after the battle for Atlantis. That's a crappy question because I'm really kind of befuddled and I'm just searching, right?
No, there's the old joke about, where does the 800-pound gorilla sit? Wherever the hell he wants to. And you can't ignore the 800-pound gorilla in the room usually. And that's the 800-pound gorilla question. You just asked it. And you asked it as politely as humanly possible, I might add. I want to give you props for that. Because sometimes you're like, how big, am I in a tunnel or am I in a bunker? I was just telling the kids earlier, it's like, son, you're sitting out here on the perimeter and you have the basketball in your hands and you've already dug yourself a hole. And if you've hit oil, that's bad enough. But right now you're hitting volcanic magma. It's popping up on you. That's how deep you're digging your hole right now. That being said, I'm going to take the 800-pound. I'm just going to leave him sit there for a minute and play with the Samsonite, and I'm going to go the other way. Can we get Miles Rice back in a position to make plays? That is my lingering question walking out of the Bahamas among 10,000 others. But the big one really comes down to if you get Mike, and to me, I see it as a domino effect. If you get Miles Rice, if you get him figured out how to get him, just to give him the keys, pretty much, how to get him to be effective, then everything else should theoretically fall into place. Your offense is more open. You're getting your points in a way that actually will be read advantageous versus you're trying to force it places. This situation is, you get him there and then you can make it kind of work on the defensive end, because if you've done that, then you're not getting Ballo switched twice and out on a perimeter defend. And I mean, how many times was Omar Ballo playing perimeter defense on a point guard this weekend? Way too many. Yeah. And so you get the Rice question figured out, where he can have space to operate. Now you've got a situation where you probably have a personnel deployment where you're not having Omar Ballo playing 24 feet from the basket, trying to close out a 6'1" point guard. Because guess what? Everybody's figured out how to do. We can use Woodson's switching schemes to get Ballo out on a littler guy, and then we're just gonna eat him alive. So you look at this thing of there he is playing with the luggage in the corner of the room. We know who that is. This is what you're going to have. Maybe what I think you're going to have to do if you're sitting, in that office. When he gets back and he starts looking at where this thing is going. This is where he's. If you're in that position where you want this to continue, meaning you want to. I don't want to say it anyway. The point is, if you want to be successful this season, you're going to have to do some things differently starting today. The evidence is there. The data is there. Quantitative, qualitative data. Your everything, you've been looking at, your anecdotal data is there. Everything you're looking at is right there in front of you. If you want this to work, you're going to have to look at it from that perspective. And if you don't, hi, buddy. And that's where it is. So I think that at this moment we have to really, again, that's the question we're confronting. And if we don't, and if he doesn't confront it, then it's a different conversation we'll have sometime in March, or who knows, maybe we'll have it before. I think that but I think that the last 72 hours have been revealing, very revealing.
Yeah. It comes down to consistency for me. We're on a roller coaster as fans in the last 4 years with good games, bad games, winning against teams we shouldn't win against and getting our hopes up and then getting blown out by 30. I think, honestly, there needs to be changes, and I think it starts with the coaching staff changing their basketball stuff. And I'm not asking for a change or going there. You need to be better in practice. You need to emphasize things that are going to help Indiana win more. You're going to have to hold people accountable because the players aren't executing at the level that's needed to win games against the Louisvilles and the Gonzagas. As Coach Woodson says, you got to elevate to the new coach with 13-player program. The buck stops there. Are there individual things the players need to do? Absolutely. Are there reasons galore for a turnover here or turnover there and officiating? Reasons galore. But ultimately, the buck stops with the head coach in charge of recruiting, in charge of player development, in charge of your assistants. You must make the necessary changes to win and to win soon, because that's what you've been hired to do. And good coaches will do that. And we all hope that it happens because we want Indiana basketball to win. But this was not acceptable basketball for Indiana University. It simply was not. And in all fairness and trying to remain as all positive as I possibly can, this was not a fun 3 days being an Indiana basketball fan. What is going to be a fun 3 days is Saturday sitting in a snowstorm watching IU kick Purdue's ass.
Yeah.
Because that's what winning does. And winning, and not just winning games that you're supposed to, but dominating games against teams you're supposed to, and then competing against other teams, right? And there's just right and a wrong way, and it's still not too late for everyone on that sideline wearing a suit and tie to get things straightened out. And we hope that you do it, and I think the lessons are plain on that whiteboard of what can be done, and put your own spin on them. And then come out against Sam Houston State next, or who are we playing?
Tuesday. Yeah, Sam Houston State on Tuesday.
Sam Houston State on Tuesday, and play good basketball. I'm not setting a score or whatever. But then all of a sudden you got Minnesota and Nebraska coming in for start a Big Ten play. You want to get off to a good start, but you've got to start winning and playing basketball a way that Indiana fans can be proud of. One of the announcers in Game 1 said, do you have no pride in talking about Indiana basketball during the game and giving up a run against Louisville? That should never be said by any announcer about any Indiana basketball program, right? You have former coaches who are talking about lineups and things like that. Like, we are ready for good, winning basketball, and people will jump on board and support every ounce of coaches, trainers, whatever, because look what's happened to the football team. When you have a good system and you have accountability and players play the right way, even when you lose to Ohio State, fans are fired up. And we are ready for that. We as a fan base are absolutely ready for that. And it starts with the coaching staff demanding it from the players and the players accepting that and then going out and doing what your coach has asked you to do, and let's win some basketball games. Coach, coming to you for I probably need to do an ad read or something here. Remember to check out Home Field Apparel and the new promo code. It's back up here. Let me go find that and give that to you. The promo code is BFCM24 for 30% off. The exclamation point went away. So use that promo code, 30% off Black Friday and Cyber Monday, all of that good stuff. But you're listening to us here at the Assembly Call. It's now time for last call. I kind of just gave my last call. So, Bob, you wrap up the show. Your thoughts as we leave the Bahamas.
Amen, Coach. Amen. And we'll see where this thing takes us. You know, there's going to be plenty of time for us also to look at this from a 30,000-foot view. There's going to be plenty of time to go through this. It's still a long season. But, you know, that's pretty much sums it all up, what you just said there. I think as fans, as supporters of the program, you know, who else? We're sitting around Black Friday hour 20 minutes after a 18-point win on a 7th place game in Atlantis, and we're still caring as much as we do. There comes a point where it's like there's still pride. We just got to get it back on the floor we're at that point where we just need to keep grinding away, and the kids will keep grinding away and see where we can go. But I think at this point, we saw what we went to the Bahamas and we saw what we needed to see, and now it's where do you go from here in the short term and see if they can figure it out. Is this like Tom Crean when somebody mentioned the chat mom went down, blew it in Maui, had a bad game against Duke, and they went out and won the Big Ten. There have been other times where we've seen a team go down and just get horse raced in a place, and they never really recover from the Kentucky game that we talk about all the time in 96, 97. You get boat raced and you don't really return. And so the question is, where do you go from here? Where's your orientation? And at this point of the season, we know what good looks like because we've been watching it on the football field. So I'm with you, Coach. You're exactly right, and we'll keep at it, and we'll see where this thing lays.
A lot of season left, and a lot of time to make those changes. Just make the changes. But that's going to do it for us here on this post-game show, 89-73 victory over Providence. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Design for designing our logo. Special thanks to producer Eddie behind the scenes on the ones and the twos. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday after the next game. Until then,
take it from me, Yogi Ferrell. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Here I come, Mrs. Stansoni.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Mrs. Stansoni's in Cromwell, Indiana. That's a long run, Coach.
Whoa, where's Cromwell? Wait,
that's
where's
her
Cromwell?
father. That's up East Noble, West Noble schools. That's where her father lives, and she's staying there while I go to the bucket and do all those types of things. Hey, for those of you who want to hang around, there was a question producer Eddie said earlier in the chat mob about why Indiana doesn't play zone because of their poor defense. So let's take 5 or 10 minutes, Coach Moats, to talk about possibility of zone defense with this Indiana Hoosiers. Your initial thoughts for our chat mob, who have been fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, thank you,
just
guys.
really good. We had one that was a little questionable. I think he kind of went away. But I am really, really enjoying the chat mob this year because you guys, I know you guys are upset just like we're upset, but you're talking basketball, and even in your upset comments, you're fair. And I can't thank you how much that makes our job better when it is a sane conversation. So you asked, let's talk a little zone defense. Coach, go ahead.
I think first and foremost, so if you want to go first, the question would be what zone defense would you want them to run? I would start there. And so if you wanted to go with this group, I just let's say you wanted to go to a 1-2-2 press that would fall back into a 3-2 kind of what Fran McCaffrey runs. I'm not sure you have the athleticism in the middle to be able to run that with Mbako, Renew, definitely not Balo. So that would be one. So if you go to the 2-3, and Andy Stump just said it, we would get more open looks than we currently do. And I think that there's a lot of truth that even with a 2-3, your speed on the bottom line, especially your guys on the kind of the baseline bottom, the non-middle part, the left and right wings, as I call them on there, versus the left and right slots. You don't have enough closeout speed to be able to cover that. So in any sort of zone, I mean, already, and I would say functionally, and I'll kick it back to you after I say this. I think the backside of the nail slot rim functions like the backside of a 2-3 zone. I think we're already.
It's pack line. The nail slot rim is a shifted pack line, is what it is.
Shifted pack line, and it just feels to me like you got the top and the bottom, and you're kind of doing that. And you're already kind of running the backside of a zone or a zone construct in that area because of the way they switch it. I don't really think it's I understand, there comes that point where you ask the question of, well, when do you make what type of change do you make here? There are some change, and I think that would be a change you could kind of look at. But I also think that so much of this is it goes, and you guys in the chat mob nailed it. How many times are you going to be playing two big dudes? How much longer you play two centers, and when everyone else is playing basically a bunch of wings and a stretch four.
I think one of the interesting things, and I believe this wholeheartedly as coaching, you might not need to change the scheme. Just run your scheme better. Or if you have a way of running man-to-man and it's not working, tweak your man-to-man. So if you don't think that overhelp in the nail slot rim is working, then play your guards closer to three-point shooters, right? And I'm more of that. Like, let's just get better at what we do, or let's make some slight tweaks to what we do. If you were to go zone, in my opinion, it'd have to be a 3-2 with the big lineup, and you'd have at the blocks, you'd have Balo on one side and Renew on the other, but you have to cover corners in that. And your closeout comment is really good, is that you have to send that bottom guy out to the corner on a kick to the corner, and that's a hard coverage, I think, for Balo. I think it's even a hard coverage for Renew. If you go 2-3, you got Renew probably on a wing, and his closeouts are bad right now in man-to-man. He might be set and know where his closeouts are going to be. That might help him a little bit. And the other thing, you have the size. Yeah, Syracuse size against that zone, but that's what Syracuse did under Boeheim for 28 years. Like, he had everything down pat. To change mid-season and try something new, if you have been a man-to-man coach for 25, 30 years and just changing into something, we made a change once, and we went to the 3-2 in high school after being man-to-man coaches. We spent all summer studying it, breaking it down into drills to get our kids ready to play that 3-2. It's a hard change to make at the end of November, December, when you're getting ready to go. Now, what you can do, chat mob, is maybe alternate it a little bit and be okay with, we're not going to play it perfectly because we don't practice it an awful lot, but you saw Providence use it after a timeout, late game. If someone's getting a lot of actions against your man-to-man, to give a changeup, then you don't have to be so perfect with it, because you just really want to force the offense into making a mistake more than your defense dictating. I think it's a hard change to make to go to zone. I would just say emphasize better things within the man-to-man. Adjust your positioning within the man-to-man that you're running would be my suggestions, if anything, or just get better. The nail slot rim is not a bad defense if you get out of the nail appropriately. And when Indiana gives up 3, they stay too long, and that's the negative in the defense. If you have players that don't understand how quick you have to get out of the nail to run out to the wing, then that defense can really be susceptible to the 3 ball, and we've just seen that. And maybe it's college kids are a little more ball hawkish and ball watching, and that heavy position makes it difficult. But in theory, it stops penetration, and it allows your back line to be there and be set, not have to help up, and then you should be able to rotate out to shooters. In theory, it is a pretty good defense if you have the athletes and the basketball knowledge to run it, and then that's on Coach Woodson. Then if you want to run it, you got to teach kids to do it and do it instinctively, and I don't think Indiana's doing it. So that's where, again, are you going to stay with it and make it better, or are you going to make an adjustment to make it better? That's kind of where we're talking about, and we'll see what the answers are.
Either way, you're looking at a zone, because in just zone man doesn't matter, because they hit the nail on the head, which is how long are you staying in a spot? How long are you? What's your intentionality? Is your intentionality to help that one pass over where you're bailing on the help? And I think the question is, how long do you keep your tag? I've always felt nail slot rim. Yep. The whole idea was to not tag the screener, but to basically tag the ball and confine it to a narrow lane going at the basket.
We dig at the ball a lot. We stay and then we dig at the ball. And that's 2 on the ball. Right, and now you're in rotation on the backside,
and you are, and you're in the worst place for it, which is one over to the slot, which is right there. I mean, you're going slot to slot passing to a guy that's wide open.
Yep, and remember when Baco got screwed up on that because he was rotating up, and then he was like, "Oh my gosh, my guy's in the corner," so he never made the full closeout to the wing. Then he was not in good position when the ball was swung to the corner. He was like in no man's land because we stayed too long on the basketball. You got to get the ball stopped, but you show and you go. You show and you go. If you're trapping, then you got to bring Mbako up hard and then X out on the backside, which they have done sometimes. But it goes, Andy, we overdig. We overdig on the ball. We even overdig from the wing to the baseline when we help off the corners. We just stay on the ball, in my opinion, too much. So maybe I don't understand the scheme. Maybe that's part of it. But if that's part of it, you got to have X outs on the backside and run people because you're putting 2 on the ball. You're in rotation. What are your rotations if that is your scheme to stay on the ball? Right?
If you got X outs, peel switching, whatever you want to do there, it's like there doesn't seem to be a fundamental baseline construct here.
Peel switch would be an interesting idea on that. If you really want to stop that ball at the nail, is peel switch, right? And if you're talking the same language as I am, the help stays and the defender on the ball runs to the open man, right? It's just a peel. You peel off the ball because your buddy helped, and then you peel off and go get the next open guy, and you sprint.
And even on ball screens or handoffs, and you're switching that, and you put your big out there with the full intention they're going to get beat. The whole idea is, they're big, but they've slowed it up. So then that way you front the post, and then they come up, and then you peel switch back to the big. That's better than what we're seeing. You go ahead and just do it. Yeah, if you're going to, but there doesn't seem to be a systemic way of switching. There doesn't be a systemic way of putting help in. It just feels.
Rice ran at the ball a couple times. I wonder if they were backside switching that, trying to do that. Where they were Xing out automatically because he ran hard at the ball a couple times. I don't know if that was just him playing it that way or that was a strategy change, right?
But if you don't have a doctrine or you don't have an identity, philosophy, whatever you want to call, and guys, they may revert back to another tactical decision. If your tactical stuff is your identity, if your tactical stuff is your philosophy, then you're probably behind it because now you're trying to, you may be focusing on what a guy didn't do versus what they should have done inside the confines of your defense or your offense. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot out of IU is just that I don't think the guys always know exactly what decision they're supposed to be making because it's overly structured. And I think it's overly structured to the point where
that's well said.
There's a vision and it's way too scripted, I think, that doesn't allow flexibility.
Man, Oklahoma State's down 42-0 to Colorado. Not to change the subject, but here's exactly, and I don't know what's going on, but this is where verbiage matters. If you constantly in practice say stop the ball, get in your nail, get the ball, stop the nail, get the ball, stop the nail. The kids are thinking stop the ball, I need to stay, or is it disrupt the ball handler and recover? Disrupt the ball, recover. Now, that's a whole different set of verbs or language. I don't even know. My wife's an English teacher. They're words, okay, from a dumb guy. They're words, and those are going into the kids. I'm disrupting. I'm showing disruption, but I got to recover. Like, recover is your number one. Disrupt and recover versus stop the ball. Well-intentioned. Both of them are designed to get that ball to not be penetrated, right? And maybe it's not disrupt and recover. Maybe it's something even better that sits in players' heads to get out, get the ball stopped and get out. But if all you do is emphasize, and again, that's where, the best coaches have great words, great teaching points. And I'm not trying to be critical here, but if we're seeing mistakes being made and inconsistencies, then your words and your emphasis and your teaching has to be better. And sometimes you still lose. I don't have a great record. I tried to do some of the things. I was aware of those things. I tried to like I said, feed the hogs was not good language the one season I used it. When I sat back in off season, I'm like, okay, those kids totally did not hear the message. They heard the words. They didn't hear the message, right? And so, I just wonder if some of that's going on. And that's where you're at. Basketball as a head coach. You intend well. You have good strategy. You're doing everything well. But you need to add in a little bit extra or change a little bit of how you approach your emphasis in practice in order to get the desired results. But you got to say, we're not getting the desired results first. And here's the words that you got to be open to change in order to change is kind of what I'm saying.
and expressing it, because I think the other question you kind of run into here is how many times do we run into a situation where it looks like not everybody's not on the same page, and that's just the coaching staff too.
Yeah.
The whole point of this is you and I probably, if we did 2 hours on how to build a coaching staff, whether you're teaching 12-year-olds, 16-year-olds, or 20-year-olds, you need to have people who can translate for you in varieties of different languages. You have to have guys that are, definitely more, who can break it down, or who can build it up, or who are able to kind of look at what you're trying to do and then get it right and get everybody moving in the same direction. And I wonder if there's times where it's like the man changes midstream, or they've got him, we're moving in this direction, all of a sudden he just veers right back and no one really knows how that's going. I see the coaches on the bench. I see them, they're all talking. I'm not sure how much is actually happening with instruction during gameplay, like somebody sitting there and working with one of the coaches, or kind of the coaches kind of pointing this out. You don't really see that sort of that sort of, we'll call it cohesion, but there seems to be a hierarchy in kind of this conversation, in the coaching interactions as well. Are they really translating what they need to do? Are they really expressing what's needed to be said to the kids on the practice floor? Yeah. And you can't answer that.
You can't. We can't answer it because we don't know, right? But you bring up a great point. If you watch bench decorum on one end versus the others, ours is different.
Ours is different.
Chat Mob, try to watch that if you're at Assembly Hall. Try to watch that in the games. It is no doubt our coaching staff versus another coaching staff has different ways of approaching in-game coaching. I'll just leave it at that. There's different ways of doing it, and leave it at that, whether that is good, bad, indifferent. Come back on the next show and let us know. But take a look at that. And it may be different in college, pro, high school. You and I coach at different levels.
We do.
So it's easy for us to sit here and say certain things. But, I always wanted my assistants to talk to kids when they come out, right? When I was a head coach, when I was an assistant for my former assistant, I would go down when I thought a kid needed something. And I'm sure that's going on. I see Calbert, and I do see Calbert, and I do see Jordy doing that.
True.
But I see an awful lot of people just sitting and watching the game too. But it's what you emphasize in no matter what level of coach it is, what you emphasize. And right now, if you see an inconsistent team, then either what you're emphasizing is not being internalized by the players, or you're not doing a good job of emphasizing it. That's just the bottom line. And coaching is a tough business. You can have all the knowledge you want. You could have work as hard, work as little as all you want. But it comes down to what you emphasize and what you hold accountable. And you'll never get 100% of it. You'll never get 100% of it. You'll have slippage in games, and you'll have teams that are just not talented enough, or whatever else gets in the way, that'll never play perfect basketball. But you got to try to emphasize things. I didn't have really good teams. I only had one team that made it. We made it to the semi-state one year. It was my best team, but even then we lost 10 games. You're whack-a-mole with all kinds. You said that, I think, on one of our shows, the whack-a-mole. You're always trying to fix one thing or one thing. But we really emphasize toughness and defense. And I know we had coaches who were so much better than us, they weren't looking forward to playing us because they didn't want that one game when we upset them, right? Because we were always capable of overplaying to what our kids' ability was. And I'll give more credit to our kids because we had tougher kids than me. But we couldn't emphasize maybe shooting or dribbling because our guys couldn't do it. So we were going to emphasize, we're going to knock you on your ass. You're going to come through a screen, we're going to knock you on your ass. We're going to block out. We're going to do certain things. We emphasize every day in practice, and damn it, we did it. Now, we scored 40 points and gave up 60 because we sucked, but we sure knocked people down. They knew they played Northfield Norsemen and the Delphi Oracles when I coached them, right? And I made enough mistakes, Coach, in my lifetime too, so I don't want to be a know-it-all on here. But it's what you emphasize, and you got to identify those things, and that's where, coming out of this week, you've got some lessons on the whiteboard. If you emphasize them, we can see some improvement. If it's status quo, we're still going to see inconsistency with this Indiana basketball team.
And at the end of the day, and you just hit the nail on the head, it's a reflective practice. Coaching is a reflective practice. Like my best years, the teams are my teams that performed the best. I'm still kicking myself going, we should have done this, or how do we do this, and going back to it. I feel like, right now, like our record isn't very good right now. I have kids who, I have kids who are doing their best going through what's been a difficult year. And part of it just has to do with when you're going kind of even at the lower levels in high school. Even in high school, I think you ran into this too, because you have multi-sport athletes. I mean, 1A, 2A is similar to what a lot of youth coaches go through, because you don't have like the 3A, 4A programs where you have guys who are basketball dedicated. You might get one in a blue moon, but at a place like Delphi, you're not going to mess over the football coach and the baseball coach. You're just not going to do it. These guys are playing. There's a season and there's a reason for it. When they're younger, when they're 5th through 8th grade, you never want to look at a kid and say, you need to pick basketball and you need to play this. And this should be your only sport, because why would I do that to a young man or young woman if I were coaching girls? I don't know if the kid's going to grow or not. I don't know if the kid's game's going to, we need to make sure kids are playing multiple sports. This is a very long way of saying you reflect back on that and you look at these types of teams like I have where, like this year, we're not very experienced. We haven't played a whole lot of upper level basketball. We're playing guys that have. And so you're trying to find ways of, how do you break it down? How do you build this up? How do you kind of work through this? You're constantly revisiting what your practice. You're constantly revisiting how you do things. Same thing's true in a classroom. You're a teacher. We're both teachers. We both have done this. And you are always looking at, how do I get better out of the people that I'm working with? I owe it to those kids. I owe it to my program. And that's how I think I look at this. And I think you and I are totally in agreement on that. It's how you do it. And it's not at the end of the day saying it's a process where you're reflecting on what you're doing, not who you are. I'll put it that way. It has nothing to do with you. It has with it speaks to what you're doing and what you're about.
And you always have those. You got to be the second guesser as a head coach.
You do.
No, like you're in a semi-state, one game away from a state championship team, and you're up 8-4 on the number 1 undefeated team. And your best defender's in foul trouble already. So you decide to hold for a last shot for 2 minutes. And Lewis Kess is going to come out in a 1-3-1. If they're going to come out of their zone, they're going to come out in a 1-3-1. But he comes out in a man. And we turn it over. They hit a 3, 8-7. Our guys are all flustered, run down, take a 3 with 7 seconds left, miss. Their D1 guard comes down, hits a 3. We're down 10-8. We never recovered. And sometimes your best intentions – we had it practiced. We knew when we go to our delay game for last-second calls, if they're going to come out, they're going to come out and trap. We practice it. I am not ashamed that I did that, because everything on film said he's going to come out. But he's a Hall of Fame coach and won the state championship for a reason. He knew I knew, and he was going to come out and do something a little different in that game, and it was all the difference. Right. And you sit there and that was in my back pocket if I ever got back in that situation. I never really really got back into the Final Four after that in 2003. But that was all, good intentions on my part, even better intentions on the other. And that's how you lose sometimes. So it's not always, sometimes you do the right things as a coach and you lose, but just make sure you're doing more right things. Right. And right now this program is inconsistent, and that has to sit with the emphasis and what goes on in that coaching staff room has to be responsible for it, even if it's mostly the kid's fault or whatever. Ultimately the buck stops there, and those changes need to be leveled out. That inconsistency needs to be leveled out by starting next Tuesday, if at all possible. Agreed. But thanks to producer Eddie, we were done about 25 minutes ago, and then producer
Eddie, you got into a coaching conversation.
he jumps in and gives us a coaching question to 2 basketball nerds who can sit here and do an X and O.
Honestly, I do want to say to the comment section, incredible work today, right? Like we're going 2,000 strong. People are having lots of questions and comments, and the zone thing came up, and I didn't want it to go by. And it was so good at the end. Like, obviously we'll keep it in the podcast. So if you're listening, we're still here. And as a former teacher, just listening to you guys, Coach has always said this when I meet up with Tonsoni, that the best coaches are teachers, right? And you reflect on the things that you see that may necessarily not work, and you do better the next day. And I think a lot of people are starting to have these conversations. Okay, well, if this isn't working, then why wouldn't we try zone? Why wouldn't we try, some of these other things that we're seeing? And I just appreciate that. And obviously shout out to everyone that's been listening. It's been fantastic. And obviously you guys as hosts have been great. I just I sit in the background and sometimes I'm like, all right, maybe it's a good time to wrap it up. I don't know. It seems to be going well. Let's continue to chat. So I just love it. It's so much fun being on this end of it.
I need to do one of two things. One, I either need to take a nap or do a workout. I know which one's better for my heart, so I'm going to have to maybe sign off here and maybe lift a few small dumbbells. Yeah, the old Brian, Coach. The old Brian wants to go take a nap. The new Brian. All right, so yeah, we got to end this. But anyway, I now have a health coach I meet on Zoom every 2 weeks, and she tells me, what I have to do and this, and she's very, very good. Like, everyone needs a coach. Everyone. I don't care what it is, finances, health, whatever. But this young lady, through our insurance thing, she has been fantastic. I've made life changes. I'm now looking forward to working out every day instead of napping. But man, what a change from, eating crazy foods and all that to eating cottage cheese for lunch. And now I'm looking forward to putting on my Senior Shape YouTube for senior citizens weightlifting program on YouTube, man. It's high intensity. Yeah,
I may be checking that out actually, because I think much like my golf game, I'm playing from the senior tees for a reason.
Yeah, 30 minutes. She's a wonderful lady, but I cuss at her all the time because she's like, breathe, push it. Like, come on, lady. I'm an old guy.
Yeah, we're clipping.
I know these are only 10-pound dumbbells, but
we are clipping all of those sound bites for the next 20 shows.
So
all right,
I say this, but hey, before I want to say, looking forward to seeing you on Sunday at Sunday for the recording of X's and Joe's.
Yeah, 7:30, right?
Tony and Tony, 7:30. We'll be back at it. We may be trying to figure out how to get ourselves logged on, so we may be utilizing your technical expertise too.
Oh yeah, well I can hit live. I'm good at hitting go live or record. So if you need that,
we may need that actually, is where we're going. So we'll get it all figured out. So we'll be in touch. Thank you again.
But yeah, in all seriousness, Chat Mob, the last 2 games has been it's always been enjoyable, but your way of approaching a real tough situation with disappointment and making it a lot of basketball stuff, even in where you're negative towards a coach or whatever else, it's not a personal thing. And we want to thank you, because that's what Assembly Call and the Back Home Network is. We're honest. We're frustrated. We want to win. We want better basketball. But we don't want to go to a direction of a lot of other shows and stuff with just screaming and yelling and being hurtful towards others. The coaching staff and the players want to win, and sometimes they don't. And they need to be held accountable in any ways that we possibly can. But you guys make it so good when you ask good questions and you talk about good comments, as opposed to just being ruthfully negative. So thank you very much. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Bob. Always good to nerd out with you on some X's and O's. We'll see you guys on Tuesday night.